What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today we're from the Stephen King shelf. So you know what that means. We know that I've got another Stephen King book review for you, and today we're talking about The Five Black Cats. No, that's not the right book. That was one of my kids' books that just happened to be sitting here. My son loves it. My daughter, she's one. She thinks it's spooky. But no, today we're talking about Salem's Lot. This was Stephen King's second ever published novel. It was actually the first Stephen King book that I ever read, and it's probably it is my favorite Stephen King book, and it's also probably my favorite vampire book that I've ever read. So Salem's Lot, it's a fictional town set in Maine. Its full name is actually Jerusalem's Lot, and there are also at least two that I know of. There might be more, but I think there's only two short stories that tie into the same setting, and those are in, oops, dropped a book. Those are in Night Shift. The first one's called Jerusalem's Lot, and it takes place before the Salem's Lot book in like 1850 or so. It's like 120 years or so before the events of this book. And then the other one is, I think it's called One for the Road. Let me look. Yeah, One for the Road, which takes place after the events of the Salem's Lot novel. But if you have this, check out those two short stories. Jerusalem's Lot was okay, but One for the Road was really good. But like I said, Salem's Lot, this is probably my favorite vampire novel. It is my favorite Stephen King book, and it tells the story of Ben Mears. He's an author. Like Stephen King, a lot of his characters are authors. They always say, write about what you know. But Ben Mears, when he was younger, he grew up in the town of Salem's Lot, and he had moved away. And now he's an author, and he's returning back to Salem's Lot because he's wanting to write a novel about the town and a place in the town called the Marston House. And Ben is sort of traumatized by the Marston House because of something that happened to him there when he was younger. And again, I'm going to try not to do any major spoilers or anything. I'm only going to be talking about sort of what's in the flap for the most part. But Ben Mears has returned to town to work on this new book. There's a college student in town named Susan Norton. They end up forming a bond and relationship and sort of fall in love with each other. But there's this sort of insidious presence that's sort of hiding in the shadows, lurking in the shadows over the town. And that is sort of, it all sort of starts with the Glick Brothers. It's Danny and, I have his name written down, Danny and Ralphie Glick. One of the boys is killed and murdered, and the other boy disappears. And that's sort of where the plot starts to kick off. There's also, if you've read the Dark Tower books, Father Callahan was first introduced in this book, sort of the downtrodden priest who's sort of losing his faith. And the events of this book sort of, deal with his faith and how it affects his faith, and that leads into, the Dark Tower novels. And then there's Kurt Barlow and Richard Straker. Those, I think he's from Austria. They have moved into town, and they actually bought the old Marston house, which is the house where Ben Mears had the bad experience when he was younger. It's sort of believed to sort of be this haunted house. It's this big sort of mansion up on the hill that looks over the small town of Jerusalem's Lot. So they've moved up in there. Kurt Barlow seems to be a recluse. No one ever sees him outside. And his partner, Richard Straker, they're business partners. He's the only one that's seen out in public. They have a furniture store with like antique, expensive furniture, which people find odd because it's sort of more expensive than the townsfolk of Jerusalem's Lot would really be able to pay for realistically. So it's sort of out of place. But they're working sinister things behind the scenes. Spoiler, I guess, if you don't know, Kurt Barlow is the vampire. And slowly but surely, and it's sort of this insidious build up until sort of the climax at the end of the book. There's this insidious build up of, people in the town start disappearing, weird things are happening, and Ben and Susan and a boy named Mark Petrie, I think is how you say his last name. They sort of team up, and they're trying to find out, what's going on. And once they find out what's going on, they try to work together to figure out how to stop it. They're also working with Father Callahan as well. And I really like the slow, like I said, insidious sort of build up to the climax. There's not a lot of action in it until the very end, but there are some really creepy scenes. If you've ever seen the movie, the scene where the vampire's tapping on, I think it's the Glick Brothers window. I can't remember if it's the Glick Brothers or Mark Petrie's window, but he's tapping on the window and he has this sort of pale, moonlit, gaunt face. That's a really cool, creepy scene. I don't want to spoil the ending, but all the stuff at the end of the book was great. I love the imagery in there. There's a pretty shocking, I guess, gut punch that I wasn't expecting with a character. There's a certain character death that I didn't see coming. I really liked that, how that played out. And the epilogue was really good, how it explains what happened, and then that ties into One for the Road, the short story. What's the state of Jerusalem's Lot now, in that other short story. But I really love this book. This book made me fall in love with Stephen King. He writes great characters, and like I said, this was my first ever experience with him. All of his characters are great, the main characters, but also the side characters that are in the book that make the place and the story he's telling just seem that more realistic. King is great about making characters feel down to earth and realistic, and those are people sort of in real life, even if they're surrounded by these supernatural, sort of fantastical story elements. I don't remember the characters' names, but there's characters in here. I can't remember if they're husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, but they live in a trailer and they have a young child, and they're always arguing and fighting with each other. And for some reason, their little side story, if you will, fascinated me. I really liked their characters. The guy who owns the junkyard was really great. If I remember correctly, there's an old lady in town who sort of like spies on everyone. She always has all the gossip. Just these little minor side characters, even they really don't play a major role in the plot at all, but they're still vividly brought to life, and you can relate with them, and you're interested in them and what they're doing, and you care about what's going to happen to them. And Stephen King is great about doing that with his characters. For the most part, in all the books I've read so far, he has written fantastic characters. But that's really all I want to say about this. I don't really want to spoil too much more. Like I said, the ending to this book, it was great. I love the ending. It's sort of this slow burn sort of a book until the ending, and the ending was just like, wow. It was super, violent, and there's a character death I wasn't expecting. And I just love how the book ended. It was great. So suffice it to say, it's a 5-star read for me. Salem's Lot. My first ever Stephen King book, and my favorite Stephen King book as of right now. But have you read Salem's Lot? If you have, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it down in the comment section below, whether you liked it, didn't like it, whatever it may be. But again, my name is Brad. Thanks for spending your time with me today, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.